While I was doing the dishes, my husband John suddenly said, "Emily, I want a divorce." I was shocked and asked, "But why?" He replied, "I'm about to get $3 million. That's a lot of money, right? But it's mine, and I don't want to share it with you." I was confused and asked, "What does that have to do with getting a divorce?" John continued, "The truth is, I only stayed with you because of money. Your salary isn't much, but it was better than nothing, so I stuck around. But once I get that money, I won't need you anymore. I want to live alone and relax, so let's just part ways." I calmly said, "Fine, if you have that much money, you can sell the house to cover the mortgage." John seemed surprised that I agreed so easily, but for me, this was a chance to end my difficult life. I slammed some papers onto the table in the living room. "My name is Emily, and I work as a preschool teacher because I love children. I met John, who is 2 years older than me, through a friend, and we've been married for almost 8 years. We bought a house thinking about starting a family and having happy times ahead. But soon after we got married, John changed. He became obsessed with money. Before we got married, he used to say my job was wonderful. But after we married, he started saying things like, 'Emily, all you do is play with kids. I'm working so hard, and you've got it easy. People probably think you're a freeloader.' He kept saying this over and over, and it became his favorite thing to say. Being a daycare teacher is hard work. Every child is different, and we are responsible for their lives. There's no such thing as an easy job," but John wouldn't listen. He ignored my feelings, and I was so frustrated and upset. "We've been married for 8 years and don't have children because of this," John would say. "If you have time to make babies, you should work more. Don't even think about quitting your job just because you have a baby. We have a mortgage and taxes to pay. What are you thinking? Don't ever talk about having kids again." I was yelled at and couldn't say anything back. Sure, John is older and has a career, so he earns more than I do. But the difference isn't that big, just a few $1,000s. Yet he always acts superior because of it. I take pride in my job and feel fulfilled every day, so being looked down on for such unfair reasons was humiliating. John's hurtful words pierced my heart, and I often cried quietly by myself. Lately, John has been saying he wants to be alone more often. He told me, "I could live by myself, but I've been sticking with you out of necessity. Don't forget that." I kept wondering why he always looks down on me. Maybe it has to do with John working more overtime lately. He often blames me, saying, "It's because you're not working hard enough that I have to work overtime to make ends meet." How about being a little grateful? But even though he works overtime, it doesn't seem like his salary is increasing. I know this because I carefully check our finances, and his income hasn't really changed much. I wondered if my comments about this made him angry because John got angrier than I've ever seen before. Who do you think is making this lifestyle possible? If I wanted to, I could easily dump you. Be prepared, he said, almost like a threat. He wasn't like this before we got married. Since that incident, our conversations have steadily decreased. Then one day, something happened that made me feel even worse. When we visited John's parents during Thanksgiving, his mother served tea and said, "You two have been married for 8 years now, right? Emily, you used to say you wanted a child soon. Considering your age, have you decided how many children you want?" I thought this would be the perfect time to talk about having kids, so I was about to speak up, but John cut me off. "Mom, we're not having kids." Emily and I talked it over and decided. His mom replied, "Oh, is that so?" "Yeah," John continued. "She said she absolutely hates the idea of taking care of kids, whether at work or at home." I was shocked and tried to say something. "Wait a minute, that's not true." But John interrupted. "Mom, can you not bring it up so much? It's stressful for Emily too." His mom nodded. "Well, if that's what you two have decided, it's okay to just be the two of you. It's certainly hard work." With that, my mother-in-law left the room, and I didn't get a chance to discuss anything. On the car ride home, I asked John, "Why would you tell such a lie? I love children and want them, but you keep saying you don't want them." John shrugged and replied, "We can't afford to have a child because you don't work full-time. Only start talking when you earn as much as I do." I thought preschool teachers earned more. What a disappointment. I didn't like the way he was talking. I never liked children and never planned on having them. Kids are just a financial burden. I was shocked, but John just laughed it off. "You should never mix personal matters with work," he said. I knew that was true, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next day, at work, a little girl named Amy from my class noticed something was wrong. She came up to me and asked, "Miss Emily, what's wrong? You seem less cheerful today." "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to worry you. I'm fine," I said, patting Amy's head. Amy was a sweet, mature girl for her age, and it was clear she was being raised well. "You're not fine," Amy said sadly. You're usually much more cheerful. I don't want to see Miss Emily like this. I felt terrible for causing such a young child to worry. Maybe my daddy can help with Miss Emily's problem. He's a superhero and helps lots of people. He's picking me up tomorrow, so I'll tell him. Usually, Amy's mother picked her up, but since she was busy, her father would come the next day. I told Amy I was fine, but she insisted on introducing me. I hadn't really spoken to Amy's father since meeting him at the school entrance ceremony, so I felt a bit nervous. The next day, Amy's father came to pick her up. Thank you for looking after Amy. I'm her father. I've heard a lot about you from my daughter, and I really appreciate that she seems to be having a good time. Oh, not at all. We're the ones who should be thanking you. Amy is a very kind girl, I replied. He seemed like a polite person, but I didn't feel comfortable sharing my personal problems, especially because they were embarrassing and hard to talk about. Amy, however, was determined. I can tell that Miss Emily is worried about something, so I want you to talk to my dad, she insisted. Thank you, Amy. I really appreciate your concern, but I understand how you feel. It can be difficult to confide in someone, even if they're a close acquaintance, her father added. However, my daughter is really worried about you. If there's anything going on, please let me help. Surprised, I took the business card he handed me and noticed his title. Looking back, I think that was the moment my fate changed. That was when I decided to take revenge on John. While I was preparing for that moment, John suddenly approached me. Hey, how about we get a divorce? He asked. It was the first time in a long while that John came home early and we had dinner together. My hands, which were washing dishes, froze. Perhaps John thought I was shocked by his sudden request because he grinned unpleasantly. You might not like it, but my feelings won't change, he added. Can I ask why a huge sum of money is coming in? Do you want to know how much? $3 million. John's mouth kept running even though I hadn't asked anything. I've been with you because I wanted money. Compared to me, it was just a drop in the bucket, but better than nothing, right? But now I have $3 million, so I don't need you anymore. Let's split up quickly. You've probably had enough of being a leech. Where did all that money come from? I asked, focusing on the first thing that came to mind. That's none of your business. We're strangers now. Okay, I understand. Let's separate then. John seemed a bit taken aback by my swift reply. By the way, I have no intention of living in this small house anymore. After all, I have $3 million. I'm thinking of using this money to live in a mansion, so I decided to sell this house too. That's fine. I'll start looking for an apartment then. You can pay off the rest of the mortgage on this house, right? Yeah, I'll pay it all off. That much at least, I guess that's natural. Our positions are different after all. Thanks, that would be great. With that, I decided to take action. John watched me move briskly with a curious look, and so began a series of busy days packing and looking for an apartment. Once the divorce was more or less settled, I set up a time to talk to John again. I'll leave the mortgage payments to you, John. I don't want to argue about whether I said it or not in the future, so I prepared a written agreement that includes all these points. Please sign it. Fine, as long as you don't start grumbling about it later. I always wondered why John had to add unnecessary remarks. A surge of irritation welled up in me, but I managed to keep my temper. As John perused the divorce agreement, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. Hey, what's this alimony section about? Why should I be the one to pay? If anything, Emily, who doesn't work full-time, should be the one paying. You thought you could hide it from me? You're so naive, I replied calmly, laying out some documents on the table. Upon seeing them, John's face turned increasingly pale. Thanks for all the overtime work you've been doing every day. I appreciate all your hard work. You love your job, don't you, John? It must be fun to be with your mistress. There was a photo of John and a woman, arm in arm, looking quite friendly with each other. This woman, she's just a junior colleague. It just looks like we're arm in arm. Is this your attempt to catch me out? You're still going to say that, huh? Then how about this? I pushed another photo in front of John. It showed him and the same woman going into a hotel. I thought this would finally make him admit the truth, but he got even angrier. This must be fake. You know how advanced photo editing technology is. Do you really think you can fool me with this? He shouted. I sighed deeply, surprised at his stubbornness, but I had expected this and was prepared. Just then, the doorbell rang. John looked nervous. I answered the door and introduced my attorney, who had gathered this evidence through a private detective. This is my lawyer. These photos were collected by a private detective agency, so they can't be fake. If you have doubts, I can call them right now. I'm the attorney for Emily, and from now on, we'll handle all divorce matters through me. Do you have any questions about the photos? My lawyer said confidently. John started to panic. It turned out that John's claims of working late were false. The private detective found out he was leaving work on time and his salary didn't increase because he wasn't working overtime. Instead, he was spending nights with his mistress. When John said he wanted to be alone, it was likely because he wanted to be with her. Amy, who was a student in my class, had helped me by connecting me to her father, the CEO of a big company. His help was amazing, and he even introduced me to a top lawyer. At first, I thought it was too much, but as I learned more about John's lies, I felt angrier and more determined to fight back. You think you can just pay me off with alimony? I have $3 million, so I can easily cover that. If you're done here, leave. I never want to see you again, John said. I would have left even if you hadn't said that. Any future issues should go through the lawyer. Don't come to me directly, I said. John spat out his final words and I quietly packed my things and left. If it had been anyone else, it might have been more impactful, but John remained arrogant to the end. As I walked away, I thought my revenge was finally complete. A few months later, as I was settling into my new apartment, something unexpected happened. My source of stress was gone. At first, I was shocked about the divorce, but I didn't feel any love left for John, so I also felt relieved. However, John showed up at my new apartment unannounced. He shouted at the entrance, begging to be let in. Reluctantly, I let him inside. What do you want? I asked. I told you I don't want anything to do with you anymore. John looked around my apartment with a smirk and said, well, you have a nice place for being separated from me. With 2 rooms here, I could move into one right away. What are you talking about? I'm not going to live with you, I replied. We were once a couple, he said. We've officially become strangers now. I realized I need you, Emily. You'd have a better life with me, wouldn't you? You were living in a mansion with your mistress. I guess you were just with me out of necessity. I don't need you now. You said you didn't need me anymore because you had $3 million. Why didn't you find someone else with that money? I said. No, you're wrong. John suddenly started crying. I said I had $3 million because I thought I'd won the lottery, but I made a mistake with the numbers. I jumped the gun. I was so stunned that I couldn't respond. I've been looking for a reason to leave you. I thought if I had $3 million, I could divorce you and live freely. Seeing the cold look in my eyes, John added, but I want you to feel reassured. I've ended my relationship with her. From now on, I'll only love you. Let's start over. You still love me, don't you? What are you saying? I don't know anything about that. You can do whatever you want, I said. Please help me, John begged. I thought I had $3 million, so I quit my job and badmouthed my boss. Now I can't ask for my job back, and my mistress stopped contacting me when she found out I didn't have any money. I'm divorced, jobless, broke, and homeless. You're my only hope. I don't know anything about it, I said firmly. If you stay here any longer, I'll take legal action. Do you remember the agreement you signed when we divorced? If you break it, I'll claim 5 times the alimony. In a fit of anger, John raised his hand. If you lay a hand on me, I'll call the cops right away. You could be charged with assault, and this apartment has security cameras. Even if you run, your face will be caught on tape, I warned John. John went pale at these words. Get out now, or I'll report you for trespassing.